All right, so it's Thursday, March 14th. Thanks to everyone who has joined. This is the monthly OpenBazaar developer meeting. We take some time, the OB1 development team, to talk through what we have done over the past month, talk through what we plan to be doing for the next month, and then give people in the community who are building on OpenBazaar the opportunity to tell what they've been working on, as well as generally let people ask questions about what's going on in development. So, over the past month, there have been 4 areas of focus for the OB1 team. To folks who have been on past calls, you're going to see a sort of familiar pattern here, but the primary focus has been the 2.3.1 release. This release is, it's considered a minor release because there's not any new major sort of features being rolled out. However, it has some very substantial changes within it. The primary one being an IPFS rebase. So I'm sure most people who have followed OpenBazaar know that OpenBazaar is built on IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, a distributed file system which lets the data be distributed throughout the network. And that system, IPFS, is maintained by a group called Protocol Labs, and Protocol Labs has been doing very rapid development on this technology. The 2.3 current release is fairly outdated in terms of the IPFS code, and so we needed to update that. So that's what majority of work on the server side has been for some time now. We anticipate that it is going to help us with some of the networking. There's some changes in how IPFS networking works in this rebase. It allows for relaying of messages sort of natively within IPFS, which we didn't have before. It should particularly help mobile and other nodes that have a limited network ability. But during this rebase, we have run into some issues. We've seen nodes that haven't been able to see each other, and messaging has been sort of wonky here or there, and it took us a while to figure out what's going on there, but we believe we have figured it out, which is an issue caused by migrations. So the Protocol Labs team has changed the data structures around a few times. They always include migrations when we do that, but those can be somewhat complicated, and we think we may have done them incorrectly sometimes in this 2.3.1 work. So they created different hashes from earlier server versions, and the new and the old weren't talking to each other correctly. We believe we've identified the problem there, and we believe we have mostly fixed that issue now. We're now on the, I'm not actually sure, I think 2nd or 3rd release candidate, but I think we are aiming to put out a new release candidate soon. And fingers crossed, that's going to be the final release candidate after testing and 2.3.1 goes out. Of course, that's always the aim with release candidates, but thus far, it's been going pretty well. And I'm just told that we're actually on RC4 already, so at the very least, there'll be a 5th before the 2.3.1 is completed. So that is primarily what has gone on in the 2.3.1. There are a few other things in there as well. One feature is the bulk coin update that allows people, instead of needing to individually change listings for which coins are accepted or not accepted, they're able to apply those changes to all of their coins. Which for people who have a large number of listings, of course, is vital. So hope to get that out soon. There's a few other bug fixes as well. I think there was an issue with people using Zcash, disputes not working properly. That I believe has been fixed. Also, something that has just come up is the fact that one of our default search providers, Blockbooth, their service has been down for quite some time, and they have not responded to requests. So it looks like at this point we're likely to remove them unless they do respond and let us know what's going on, which is unfortunate, but the service is not available, so it should be removed from the client. That's the bulk of the 2.3.1 stuff. Anyone on the OB1 side, have I missed anything for 2.3.1 that's worth mentioning? Okay, I hear silence, so I'll continue. The second area of focus is on Haven development. So for those not in the know, Haven is the mobile application that OB1 is creating. And it is actually a full OpenBazaar node run directly on the mobile device, both for iOS and for Android. So the server side is OpenBazaar, OpenBazaar Go server. And then the client side is a proprietary OB1 mobile app, which interfaces with the server on the device itself. So there's a few things we've been working on there. One is we actually brought on a new contractor onto the OB1 design team, whose job is to focus primarily on assisting with Haven, at the moment at least. And a lot of what's been going on recently with Haven development is polish on the user interface. When I was looking through the recently closed issue, there's a slew of issues that have been closed in just the past week, which are primarily smaller UI polish things. There are still a few spots in the application. I think Washington referred to them as tender spots, like chat and social, that are having some issues, which require further investigation. We think some of them are related to Rebase and these migrations and whatnot. And the hope is once that's fully sorted out, that's going to be fixed. But for example, the messaging service on the app takes a very long time to start and also quite some time to publish. And we're not sure if recent changes have exacerbated that or there's some bug there. So that's still under investigation. But a lot of work being done on the Haven side. We have a very limited sort of testing group, a few people here and there that we've submitted it to. If you're interested in getting information about Haven as soon as it's ready, you can go to gethaven.app and sign up on the waiting list there. Anyone on the OB1 team that wants to jump in on Haven stuff? Have I missed anything important? Okay, I'll continue. The next area is Ethereum and token work. So on the OpenBazaar token, there are several smart contracts that are being built to give the token its functionality. One of them is a rewards smart contract. So this is basically, this allows for tokens to be created or distributed based on certain actions being taken on the network. Like, for example, purchasing something from a particular vendor, you can get OpenBazaar tokens as a result of doing that. You get rewarded. So that contract was audited by an external group. And I believe the audit came back with no critical or major vulnerabilities, only minor ones. And those issues are currently being addressed. That token, or that smart contract, was the last token-specific contract that needed auditing. So the OpenBazaar token work is very close to being finalized. There's been some work on determining distribution details and kind of how we're going to go about the distribution of the token. So hopefully in the near future, there'll be more public details about that. I believe that that contract and sort of the work around that have been moved from a private to a public repository as well. So you should be able to go and follow that work if you're interested. On the Ethereum side, I know I believe we talked last month about the fact that we ran into an issue there, which was the precision of Ethereum. Ethereum precision is much, much more granular than Bitcoin, which OpenBazaar was built for, and that causes problems in a few areas in the app. So a plan was put into place. We figured out how we're going to address that, and the actual development to address it, it has yet to begin because there's some work that needed to be accomplished on the sort of Ethereum side before that work could be started. But that work is underway, and as soon as that's done, the precision work will begin. I don't think we have a. Well, I'll get to the 2.3.2 stuff in a little bit, but my impression is that's not likely to make it into 2.3.2. If someone else knows otherwise, you can speak up, but that's my understanding. Is there anything else? Oh, Mike, you unmuted. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I don't mind speaking about the Ethereum stuff a little bit more if you can hear me.
Sure. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so the precision work not only has been a solution for it has been figured out, but we have started work on it in earnest, at least within the wallet implementation itself. There's some impact to the OpenBazaar Go server as well, which that work has not begun, as we're trying to change our wallet interface to facilitate some of at least one of the peculiarities of the Ethereum wallet and potentially other currencies later on in the future. So the precision work is in fact going as planned, at least within the wallet implementation itself. And while we stop for a minute to sort out the details of this wallet interface change to support this peculiarity with Ethereum, specifically in being able to associate specific orders with specific payment, there's no risk or challenge around the precision work continuing. I can say that 2.3.2 won't see the precision work, most likely, as we are expecting to chase potentially our ICE rebase in the very near future. But we haven't had that plan specifically yet.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks for the clarification there, Mike. Okay. Anything else on the Ethereum or token side? It will be one team before I move on. All right. The last area of focus that I was going to mention is the web work. We've talked in the past that we're building a web interface so that people aren't required to use the desktop application. Basically, an OpenBazaar node in browser. Initially, would be focused on buyers. The long-term aim, if possible, would be to have a full OpenBazaar node in browser. There's been some work off and on to do that. I know recently there's been work to get authentication working properly there. But other than that, I don't know how far that development has been. It's still, my impression is still relatively early on the website.
That's correct, Sam.
Yeah.
We're currently at the point where we can create and save simple profiles and communicate between nodes, but that's very preliminary.
Gotcha. Thank you, Josh. So that's the bulk of what we've been doing over the past month. Anyone from the team want to contribute something that I have missed? Okay. Sounds like about. Go ahead, Mike.
Wallet generally. We want to make some big changes to the interface, and we'll be talking about those changes in our public Slack. As we come across these new design changes, we want to include the community in that. So if there is any interest in helping us guide the direction of this wallet interface, I would welcome your input either on GitHub. We have a repo inside OpenBazaar/wallet-interface where some of that discussion is happening. And we're also having a discussion in our public Slack. But if there is a better channel or some other place that we can reach out to you, we're very interested in having your input on it.
All right, thanks, Mike. Mike's audio cut out a little bit on my end. I think I got the gist of what he was saying. I'll repeat it just in case others couldn't hear. We're looking at doing some wallet interface changes, and Mike suggests that if anyone is interested in contributing to that, giving feedback on that, he recommends joining Slack or looking at the GitHub interface.
You hear my microphone?
Yes, I can hear you. Or joining the show that is.
Can anyone hear my microphone?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us? Not sure if he's able to hear us, but
Okay, cool.
good deal. So let's see. Mike responded that OpenBazaar -2 O or private payment channel that are
I can't hear
invited.
anybody else. I think Sam's icon's moving, but I don't hear him.
It sounds as though Crypto Shop's not able to hear us, but we are able to hear him. So let's see. I'll type. Oh, well, Rod beat me to it. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to move on. Other things of interest that happened over the last month. One is something external to OB1, the launch of Zocos.com, which is a really neat service where it's a hosted service for merchants specifically. Rod is on the call, and that's Rod's project, so that's been really exciting to see. Rod, I mean, if you're willing, I see you unmuted. I'd love to hear how things are going.
Yeah, so the update or the release for the beta went really well. I'll make these updates kind of fast. So for anyone who doesn't know, Zocos.com was a to-be full vendor client for OpenBazaar. It's supposed to be as easy as possible to kind of get new vendors onto OpenBazaar and get their feet wet. I really focused on making it easy to use and trying to get new vendors signed up in the minute or less so they can see what OpenBazaar is without having to really make that much of a commitment. Over the next month, I'm trying to really hit feature parity with the current OpenBazaar client. And what I'm working on right now is finishing up escrow, which is just a huge thing I want to make sure works really well. Other than that, the work has been just fixing some more front-end glitches that people have reported and integrating with the ingestion endpoint that Tyler had created. So previously, a lot of the listings weren't showing up on OB1's search engine, but just fixed that thanks to Tyler's work. And over the next month, I'm going to be working on getting escrow set up for the site.
Awesome, thanks for that. I appreciate that update. I've also seen you around on like the Reddit and the Slack, interacting with other community members and stuff, which is awesome to see. So thanks for doing that. It's good to see you around.
Happy to.
All right. I'm going to switch over to the future focus now, what we aim to do moving forward. Obviously, 2.3.2 is the next desktop release. So we have a whole list of things that we want to work on moving forward on the desktop side, but those have not all been prioritized in a systematic way yet. That hasn't happened. So we can't definitively say here are all the things that we're going to be working on for the 2.3.2. But there are a few things here and there that I'm pretty confident saying we're likely to work on. Just don't hold me to it yet. One of those is a change to how listings are retrieved from search. So right now, if you are using a search provider in the OpenBazaar client itself, you are going to, when you click on a listing, it's going to do an IPNS call. IPNS makes sure that you have the latest data on the network, the most up-to-date. But IPNS calls are also very slow compared to IPFS calls. So one thing that we're considering doing is switching the default from IPNS to IPFS. Now, there's some trade-offs involved there. One is that you are more likely to get out-of-date information if you do the IPFS call. A way to counteract that is maybe to initially do the IPFS call and then do an IPNS call in the background, and make sure as you're looking at the listing, or if you choose to attempt to purchase, that IPNS call is made so that you have the most up to date. But regardless, I'm sorry, did someone want to jump in on that? I heard someone's mic unmute. Oh, it might be Crypto Shop. It sounds like you may have fixed your audio.
Yeah, it works.
Okay, awesome. Glad to hear. Okay. But the trade-off, the benefit of doing that is that IPFS calls are substantially faster, and I mean, like, 1 or 2 or more orders of magnitude. IPNS calls can take 30 seconds to a minute or more even, whereas IPFS calls typically are, I don't know, 100 milliseconds, or they're quick, fraction of a second typically. So we are going to be looking at the trade-offs of allowing listings to load quickly, but potentially have outdated data, and I think right now that's kind of what we're leaning towards. That is going to put a bit more emphasis on search providers to make sure they are providing up-to-date data. But there's also a second thing that we're looking at doing, which is going to help with that. And actually, Rod already mentioned it earlier. We are looking to create, or have created for OP1, an ingestion, what we're calling an ingestion endpoint. That allows people, instead of the search provider basically crawling the network and looking for data that's changed in order to update their listings, it allows them to have an endpoint where people can, as soon as they publish a change to the network, alert the search provider that they've changed, and then the search provider will then look at the data and immediately update their listings without needing to kind of randomly wait for them to be noticed. So initially that was created to help with services like Zucos, as well as to help with the mobile application. But we are going to be creating a spec and to kind of determine it's going to be included in the desktop client as well, and that it can be used for for anyone also. Those are a couple things that we're likely to be doing over the next month. Other things, well, I guess I'll ask the team. We haven't, as I said, we haven't yet sort of prioritized exactly what we're doing, but are there other likely issues we want to tackle in 2.3.2 that we expect to be working on over the next month?
Yes, Sam, this is Mike. I think something that's high priority for us, at least on the back-end team, is trying to get some guarantees in our message delivery and message handling system. I know that that's been creating constant challenges for us. I don't know that it's going to be a 2.3.2 sort of fix, but we're at least going to be finding some solution for either this coming release or something going down by pretty shortly.
Gotcha, thank you. You cut in out a little bit there again, but message handling is what Mike was getting across as something that needs to get some attention as we've had issues with it. So yeah, that seems likely to be the case. Okay, so that's on sort of the desktop end.
And just to back that up,
Yeah,
Sam, the primary focus in the next release or two will be kind of under the covers where we're improving reliability and shoring things up, but it's not going to be adding new features.
Yeah. In the back of my head, I think of all the new features I want, so I'm not willing to say yes, that's true. But I think based on where we've been talking recently, that likely seems true. And of course, with tech this cutting edge, there's always going to be a lot of opportunities to sort of optimize and improve reliability and whatnot. So yeah. Okay. Some other things that we're naturally going to be working on are the stuff that we already had been working on over the past month. Mobile being a huge one. It's been a huge focus of ours. I don't think we have sort of timelines as to things that are going to be done over the next month, but we are, the app continues to get closer to a point where we're able to have more of an open testing process. And then obviously, after that, launch in the app stores. Same for the Ethereum and token work. I already mentioned kind of where we're at on the token side. It seems like we're getting pretty close to everything being in place for the launch. And we've already talked about where the Ethereum stuff is at as well for the precision work and wallet changes and whatnot. And the last is web, which we sort of discussed earlier as well. So all of those things continue apace as they have been. Is there anyone on the OB1 team who would like to add anything about where we'll likely be focusing over the next month?
Well, we've I don't know if we've specifically prioritized this, but we've been doing a lot of discussions about improving the IPNS using like a tiered routing structure that I think once we get our like back end in place shouldn't be a whole lot of work on the client side, and it'll help make it more robust and potentially faster. We'll see.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I know there's also been talk about having sort of a channel, I think using PubSub, where IPNS changes are kind of all put in the same place. So I know there's a few things around IPNS that could be done.
Yeah, that's something I've wanted to do for a little while. We could add that ourselves, but it's something that the actual IPFS developers have been discussing too. So I don't know. We might have to coordinate because I don't want to do it one way only to have to switch to their way later on.
Yeah, I hear you. There's a lot of that kind of thing going on where it's not sure how much we should try to build stuff ourselves versus the Protocol Labs folks. But that's what happens when you're building on top of tech that's being built, right? So,
Yeah.
Rod asked if there's been any work or research or discussion about speeding up IPNS publishes. Tyler responded that tiered routing should do that. Should speed up both reads and writes. Other than that, I don't think there's been discussion about us, OB1, attempting to address IPNS work, but certainly we have made it known to the Protocol Labs people that would be wonderful to see, and I think they're aware of the issue, but I can't speak as to what they're trying to do.
Well, I guess in terms of the speed of publish, maybe from a UX, but so the tiers, there's going to be different routers that we can publish to, and the DHT router is always going to take a while. There's things that can be done to speed that up, but it's like build down a new DHT, like it's a lot of work there. But as some of the routers, when you publish to it, it'll be very fast and like nearly instant. But from a user perspective, at least in the UI, unless we make some changes to how the UI works, it's always gonna show it's publishing until the slowest router finishes. And that right now the slowest one is the DHT.
Yeah, and I'll just add, my main concern is that customers are a little edgy about mostly that their listings show up on the search engine. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on the DHT, but as long as we have some kind of solution that when customers create a listing, that I can get it on the search engines, within a few seconds would be fantastic.
Yeah, it should be pretty much immediate. Like the first tier will send it to us right away, and then we can index it. And then I've been experimenting, Chris. I don't know. We can talk about this offline, but I've been experimenting with doing the DHT publish in the background, and it seems to work pretty well. But we can experiment with that later.
Not wait to return while it's publishing.
Right, it writes to the API and to PubSub, and then returns while doing DHT in the background.
Okay.
All right, good deal. So lots on the IPNS side. I noticed, Mike, thanks for reposting an earlier question I missed. Crypto Shop asked, what about resolved store URL addresses such as OB custom name? Yeah, so the naming stuff are things we've talked about a lot in the past. OB version 1 actually had such a system using Blockstack, but version 2, doesn't yet. I don't think we have prioritized putting in such a system. It's something we've kind of wanted as a low priority thing, but I don't think we have specific ideas sort of set up. I know, Chris, that you had hoped, or we actually had some ability to resolve domain names. Is that already possible, or?
I think it's still in there on the server side, and I think it's a relatively small change on the client side. Maybe this could be a question for Crypto Shop and Rod. Is this something that you guys would like to see? I mean, because we could prioritize it. So the idea would be like your store could be like, Chris at Zocos.com or whatever, and then someone could reach it that way, in the web and also on the desktop browser.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good idea. I know that there's something called a Namecoin that has the .bit address, but there's another coin, I think it's called Emmercoin, and it actually has its own decentralized DNS system in it. It's like Namecoin, but somehow better. I haven't really looked it all up.
Yeah, those are more complicated solutions. The easy, quick and dirty one is to just piggyback on the existing DNS system, so you can use any domain name you want that you own. Of course, would require someone buys a domain name, but a shop like Crypto Shop probably already has one,
Yeah, I have a domain name.
Yeah.
I'll add, just from what I've heard from customers, they don't really mind, or at least nobody's at least mentioned it to me, at least in the support messages, about getting a more readable URL. So at least from my side and what I've seen, I wouldn't say it's something that needs to be done immediately or before, your list of, immediate features.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the same feedback that we've got. It was one of those, hey, this is nice to have in version 1, but there has not been a clamoring for that in version 2. But as Chris points out, well, without having fully spec'd it out, it doesn't seem like a huge ball. So eventually it's something that I'd like to see as well.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think right now, though, I think a lot of users are relying on the search engines more than direct listings, like that.
Yeah, I agree. The web buying and the speeding up the protocol, that's probably a higher priority.
Right.
Chris,
Okay.
Was there any interesting input from the IPFS team regarding the dedicated IDs, or the DIDs as they're calling them?
I haven't had a chance to dig too deep into that, so I'm still new to that spec. So I have to look into it more.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add to that conversation is that the IPFS team is also looking at having some sort of formal name resolution. But I don't know if this spec is public, or I can try and find a link for it and put it in the chat.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mike. Any other questions or comments from anyone about anything? On our side, I've gone through where we're at, but any questions or comments are welcome.
If nobody else has one, I'll start. With the mobile app, are you guys looking at, I know deadlines are always terrible, but just for an idea, is it a few weeks, few months, and are we starting with an early beta, or what is that looking like? Because I'm not really sure where it's at, and I am curious.
We've been fairly tight-lipped about timelines and deadlines. Part of that, honestly, is because in the past we haven't done a great job with those.
It's
And so-
impossible. It's
I know, but we don't want to put anything out there and then disappoint people. So it's kind of it's ready when it'll be ready approach.
Okay.
The only thing I can say is that there's been, mostly internal testing, small group of people that have done external testing. I mean, if you're interested in being that group, just message me in Slack. But with the caveats of there's a few areas here and there we know still need work. But this is not a 6 month away thing. That we can say confidently, but it's not a 2 week wait.
Got it. That works.
Yeah, but good question. And we hope to give more clarity around that stuff as we get a little more certainty ourselves.
Yeah, it's an exciting release.
It is. OpenBazaar on a mobile device, we've been dreaming about that for years now, so to actually be a reality is very exciting. Any other questions or comments?
What coins are going to be the new ones that are added within the next few months?
That's a good question. So for those who aren't familiar right now, we have Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Zcash. The next coin to be added is going to be Ethereum. As we mentioned earlier, we don't have a specific timeline for that, but that's kind of the main coin that's being focused on right now. Oh, something I didn't mention that's worth mentioning is that there has been a lot of discussion around Monero. There have been a few folks in the Monero community who've done a really good job of diving into the details as to whether or not Monero integration is even feasible in OpenBazaar. And kind of unfortunately, the outcome was it's sort of feasible. The way Monero multisig works, this is my understanding, it requires parties to be online for the multisig to be created, and that's not how OpenBazaar works. So it seems like right now, unless there was some serious work done, that Monero could only be implemented for direct payments, not for multisig. And it's kind of up in the air as to whether or not that's going to happen. We would love to see it happen, but it would take a heavy lift from someone in the Monero community to do that. That is my understanding. Otherwise, there has been discussion of some other coins that are easier to implement. They're more Bitcoin derivative coins, basically, that we've talked about. I know Dash has been discussed. I don't know if any other coins specifically have been discussed. Other than that, except for on the Ethereum side, tokens token functionality would be included as well. I think initially, at least, I think it'd be ERC20 tokens. I know there's been talk about stablecoin tokens potentially, but again, this is all generally sort of speculative, and we don't have a specific ordinal ranking of which coins are coming next, other than Ethereum for certain, and after that it's a bit fuzzy. Mike did post in the chat a link to the Monero community post about feasibility of integration. Thank you, Mike, for posting that. I highly recommend anyone who's interested in reading that post. It's very complete. And yes, we did create that post. Did that answer your question, Crypto Shop?
Yeah.
Okay. Ron asks if ERC20 tokens are going to be usable with the first Ethereum wallet release with OpenBazaar. I believe the answer to that is no. I think it's going to be tiered so that the Ethereum wallet first is just straight Ethereum functionality, and that the smart contracts that enable the ERC20 token functionality come after. If that's wrong, please someone jump in and tell me, but I think that's the current approach.
So the only thing I'll say,
yeah, go ahead.
Hopefully my audio is better now. The only thing I'll say to that is the ERC20 tokens are not likely to be added all at once. I suspect that there will be details about each of the tokens to get them as functional currency within the platform that will have to be manually enabled. This will be more like the ERC20 capabilities are there, and available for implementation.
That's a good point, Mike. Yeah, it shouldn't be viewed as soon as the ERC20 is accepted, literally all of them are. I don't think that that's the case, as Mike points out. And I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but my understanding is the main thrust of the ERC20 compatibility that we're working on is to enable OpenBazaar token functionality, which initially is going to be primarily two things. One, the ability to place ads within the OpenBazaar network client, and also the ability to reward users for taking certain actions within the network. So that functionality, ERC20 functionality, is being done to support the OpenBazaar token functionality, but it'll also allow a few select tokens to work initially. That, I believe, is the vision.
I have a question about the new review system. I do know there's some coins out there like the Ink protocol token, and they have a review-based, coin. Like you gain reputation by more transactions you complete. Is that going to take place in the OpenBazaar token?
So right now, my understanding is that the token itself does not incorporate any sort of review functionality. I'm not an expert on what the token does, but I don't think that is a component. Now, it can, I believe, it will be tied to certain actions that are taken on the network. For example, I'm pretty sure one of them right now is like if you buy from a certain vendor, you get rewarded with tokens. I think in theory it's possible that it could be something like if you leave a review on a vendor, you could get tokens. Like that type of thing is probably possible, but I don't think right now that there's any plan to implement that. And I would add generally on the token and Ethereum stuff broadly, that if you have specific questions about how it's being done, I highly recommend joining Slack, joining our OpenBazaar Slack group. And I'm trying to think of the best channel. I don't know the best channel for that. If anyone on the call does, jump in. But just pinging some folks who work on that sort of stuff. And when you get in the Slack, ask around, and we can direct you to the right people. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, it sounds like no. So thanks everyone for joining. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for the great questions in chat and over audio as well. I suggest that all of you who are interested follow up on the Slack. Beauty Bubble made a suggestion on this meeting. Make certain that the links shared find a home on Slack. Okay, to clarify, you're saying that this chat transcript, all of the links are put into Slack somewhere as well, not simply in this transcript. I think that's what you're saying, which makes sense for posterity's sake and to spread the word as well. So thank you for that suggestion. Join the Slack. If you're not sure how to do that, if you go to the openbazaar.org website, there is a link you can click to ask to be invited to the Slack group. You should be added fairly quickly after that. And then just ask around for help. We're always interested to help folks out. Everyone have a good day, and hopefully see you back here next